Hello and welcome to World Building Essentials and Exercises. My name is Lewis Nichols and today we're creating a character. Everyone, meet Gabe. Gabe is a 5th level Eldritch Knight. He's a human and he has a job. That's right, we're doing something a little different today. You understand, have to keep it fresh. We're building Gabe for a specific role in my world. Of course it's possible the party will never meet him, but if they do, I'll be ready. And if not, it's a good exercise for all of us. After all, one of my goals was to develop my role-playing of NPCs in the coming year. I feel like these character build videos have always been for all experience levels. So let's start with the absolute basics of our Eldritch Knight. This is a subclass of fighter, and it's included in the 2024 Players Handbook. That's the rule set we'll be using. A long time ago, I would have referred to fighters as a good class for beginners. In a way, that's still true, but only because you have to start somewhere. 5th edition fighters have lots of options in combat. Outside of combat, they can be anything you can imagine. In the vaguest sense, they are the ones wearing armor and wielding weapons. They are the most generalized and moldable of the martial classes, and they combine well with almost anything in a multi-class build. Gabe grew up part of a typical Delta Coast home in the city of Vica Marino. His parents are alive, even a grandparent. An aunt moved in when he was young after she survived a disaster that killed her family. An uncle is around, mysteriously single. Gabe was one of 7 kids, 5 are still living. His family has been in and around the business of fishing. They have been for generations. When Gabe was in his tweens, the family was at a peak. They were operating their own fishing trawler and putting money away for a new home. Then the storm hit. For the coast, it was just one of many, but for the family, it will always be the hurricane. The boat was wrecked, no insurance. Their small fortune lost to the winds and water. Gabe lost a brother. Now I tend not to shy away from dark themes, so, in this story, Dad became despondent and tried to join that brother. However, thankfully, the attempt failed. Watch out for each other out there. Born of necessity, Gabe committed his first act of heroism. He signed a contract with a local military order. His small salary kept the family going. The next 20 years was one of adventure for Gabe. He grew in levels and became embroiled in his life's quest. 10 years into his contract, Gabe was on a mission that led him to discover there was a dark malevolence behind the hurricane. If he was a PC, he would have rose to face impossible challenges, gaining fame and fortune along the way. Instead, he's led the life of an NPC. Where he could, he fought the cults and evil influences aligned with the Delta Coast's vilest villains. But he spent most of his time becoming an expert in their organizations. On retiring, Gabe became a ship chandler, running a small general store specializing in fulfilling the needs of local seaborne enterprises. He sells everything from nets to navigator kits, and all the various odds and ends one might need to operate a fishing boat. His family works with him. He, his father, and his uncle form the core of the partnership. For Gabe, it's all a front. He continues to collect information on the mechanizations of the coast's malevolent churches and rampant cultism. He is a key player in the area's fragile resistance. He dreams of the day a band of heroes will come looking for information, heroes he might aid in their quest to save his land from shadow. Thanks for dropping by the channel. I hope Gabe will inspire you in your own campaign. I appreciate each and every one of you. You are important to this world. Hit that like and subscribe button. Leave a comment. But even if you don't, I gotcha. Just kidding. We're only getting started. Although you could still hit that like and subscribe button while it's on your mind. Now, while we talk some numbers, enjoy this short tour of Vica Marino. In 5e 2024, and in every other RPG ever made, fighters are dex and strength based. That is where they get proficiency in saves, and this is something that really matters. Dex saves happen all the time in D&D. With a 14 dex, you'll save against a DC 15 about 40% of the time. With proficiency, that number jumps to roughly 50%. If you don't think 10% is a big deal, throw away that +2 longsword. Fighters get a long list of skills to choose from, and they're most of the good ones. Perception, athletics, persuasion, many more. You get all the stuff, too. Weapons and armor are all available to you from day one. Oh, I forget. You get a lot of hit points, too. Use that D10. Multi-classing into fighter, you get proficiency in all the weapons and armor and shields. Well, almost all. No heavy armor for you. And obviously, you get the features. At first level, that amounts to a fighting style, second wind, and 3 weapon masteries. That means choices for Gabe. Fighting style is your primary mode of fighting. Are you an archer, a sword and board guy, or maybe you carry a weapon in each hand? There is defensive, which I really like. I mean, a free point in AC in 5th edition, that's a big deal. There is also blind fighting, which seems pretty niche, but potentially strong. In the right group, interception and protection could be really fun options. Finally, unarmed fighting seems like a seriously viable method of combat, again, in the right campaign setting. For Gabe, I'm going to make him a duelist. I kind of just want to see how the numbers work out, but this is an urban adventure. While a lot of citizens will carry swords on the Delta Coast, a shield can get in the way of normal business. Going on a bit of a tangent here, but let's talk about world building and weapon styles. This is the sort of thing that can definitely be an aspect of culture. It might just be within the organization he joined, or the whole region. You can decide certain styles are favored. You can make belonging to a certain group require certain choices. Just make sure the perks are worth it. Mind you, I'm not saying that you should force your player into choosing a certain weapon style. Just that, if they choose to belong to a certain faction, there may be conditions. That's just if you want. There is a certain wisdom in factions presenting a variety of different builds. Alright, that's enough for the tangent, and I just added a paragraph to my Delta Coast write-up. Moving on to Second Wind and Weapon Masteries, there's not any real choices here. Second Wind gives you a little bit of healing on a bonus action. Weapon Masteries are cool, but they're not a lasting choice. You can change out a single weapon mastery on a long rest, meaning over 3 days you can completely switch out your repertoire. We're going with Longsword here for Gabe, so he'll have Sap and 2 others of low relevance. At second level, Gabe picks up Action Surge. Again, no choices, but this is probably the pinnacle of fighter abilities. Fighters have a strong damage output as it is, but getting to double it in any given turn, well, that's pretty good. It's probably the biggest reason to dip into fighter as a multi-class option. New rules say that you cannot take 2 magic actions even with Action Surge, but as part of the new transition, I'm allowing it in my ongoing campaign. In future campaigns, I may or I may not. As for Gabe, this matters because he's going to be casting spells through his subclass. Does it make him unbalanced? Well, it might, but probably not. Most of his spells aren't really that kind of spell. But I'm just going to let it ride. We'll see where it goes. Also at second level is Tactical Mind. Remember Second Wind? This expands that ability to add a D10 to a failed ability check. Roll a 10 on Intimidation, pile on another D10 for the added chance of success. If you still fail, your use of Second Wind is not expended. At third level, Gabe gets his subclass, but we'll get into that in just a second. At fourth, he gets his ASI, which we'll also get to in a moment. Finally, at 5th level, Gabe gets his extra attack, roughly doubling his damage output. This means 2 attacks every single turn, 4 if he's using Action Surge. Now what about that multi-class? Eldritch Knights weave helpful melee spells into combat without the need for multi-classing. At 5th level, Gabe has the ability to prepare 4 first level spells and has 3 first level spell slots to cast them with. Generally, Shield is the go-to, but there is some room for utility. He also has a pair of cantrips at his disposal. All of these things are wizard related, including using intelligence as the relevant ability score. You don't have to stress about pushing up that score though. Instead, knights can do quite well with spells that don't depend on a high modifier. In other words, no saves, no to hits. Shield, mirror image, invisibility, stuff like that. Finally, you get an ability called War Bond with Eldritch Knight. It lets you summon your weapon to your hand as a bonus action. Mostly it prevents you from being disarmed, but I could see it being helpful in a number of snazzy situations. Now, let's get to background, attribute scores, and some feats. We'll see about damage output after we get that done. We're going to use the matrix scores out of the Players Handbook, but arrange them ourselves. That's a 15, 14, 13, 12, and 10. Don't forget the 8. For a background, I'm going custom. Say hello to the shopkeeper. Ability scores? He can get a bonus in strength because he spent years maintaining a storeroom. He's got intelligence possibly for creating that business plan and sticking to it. And finally, he has the option of charisma for dealing with the public all those years. As a feat, he has skilled. Skill proficiencies, persuasion and insight. Tool proficiency, a kit relevant to the shop type. A little bit more opportunity to customize your background there. Equipment, do we really care? Fine. A relevant toolkit and some stuff, or the 50 gold. Specialization, bartering, advantage on persuasion rolls involving money. Now what's that specialization thing? Yeah, I'm adding it to my custom backgrounds, and probably the ones out of the book eventually. I'm making Gabe a human, mostly because that's the way I've been picturing him this whole time. That and humans are really good. This is going to give him another skill, a daily inspiration, and another origin feat. We're going to make that alert. Now what about his 4th level ability score increase, ASI, or feat? Actor is seriously tempting, given the story that I've built around him. I could see him infiltrating the fringes of the societies that he tries to keep tabs on. Now, there's also, depending upon multiple ability scores, it just makes taking the increase promising. If he was my NPC, I might go with something to aid his melee attacks, as he is purpose-built to be an NPC. Let's do actor. That leaves us with a very diversified, if not exactly optimized character. The next ASI begs for a +1 in strength and 1 in charisma. Picking up a level in thief for expert would play into his array of skills. Picking up bard would lead to the same thing. As always, sticking with fighter is a great idea too. As he grows in levels, he's going to slowly transition away from information gathering into a more active role. Light, mending, and prestidigitation are all good choices for his cantrips. Despite the save, Charm Person seems ideal for Gabe's build. Shield is obvious, as is Disguise Self. For a 4th, we'll go with Identify to help him in his role as a shopkeeper. What do we have in a fight? He's going to wear a variety of armors depending on what he's doing in a given day, but he'll wear the heaviest appropriate armor. In the shop, he's got a nice set of chainmail, befitting to his old days in the fighting guild. That's an AC of 13. If he knows he's going into a slogging match, he has a beat-up set of splint armor for a 17. On missions, his leather give him an AC of 11, not much better than normal clothing, which is also not unusual. It's a good argument for the mage armor spell. Now don't despair too much over his low AC. Remember that we have multiple uses of the shield spell, and that's 2 or 3 rounds with a +5. Knocking him up to a very respectable range for the opening rounds of combat. We also have sap, which means at least some attacks are going to be coming at Gabe with disadvantage. Between strength and pro bonus, he's going to have a +6 on attack rolls and +5 to damage. Remember his fighting style of Dueling Master. Makes you wonder, the average on a D8 is 4.5, so that's 9.5 damage. If you use a longsword two-handed, it's a D10, so 5.5. That would make his average damage 8.5, so that's worth it, I would say, especially as his number of attacks per round goes up. At 5th level, Gabe is hitting low AC enemies over half the time. With 2 swings, that's a reliable 10 points, 20 on an action surge round. He'll drop his clone in 2 rounds, which is about what you would expect. Eldritch Knights are not about increasing your damage output. They are about the increased utility of spells like Misty Step, Fly, Jump. All of these are just add-ons to an already capable fighter build. If you compare them to the tricks you get from other subclasses, it makes up for the difference in damage. It's all about the character that you want to create and the things that you like doing in the game. What about role-playing? Gabe is paranoid. Not only is he risking his own life, he's putting his family in danger with the mission he's on. Usually, it would take a long time to gain his trust, but he is well informed. My party is probably going to be 12th to 13th level by the time they get to the coast. Could be more. They've been considering this trip for quite some time now. The point is, they're going to have quite a bit of notoriety, and Gabe might very well know that they're coming to the coast before the party knows to seek him out. He might even figure out a way to lure them into his safe zone for a conversation. As one of my ongoing points of interest is presenting better role-playing moments with my NPCs, I'm going to give him a few distinct traits. For one, he's twitchy. It's possible his mind has been affected by a few failed wisdom checks over the years. It's also probably the character's biggest weakness. Mostly, he's paranoid. His eyes dart around the place. He checks the windows and the doors over and over again. He looks out for rats and spiders that could be spies. He hates the crows and the seagulls. He suspects every one of them to be the eyes of his enemies. He's stingy and always desperate for money. All of his profits go to bribes and the fruition of his quest. This puts pressure on him to raise more money so his family might live better. But that saved money is soon gone. He's constantly asking, why? Why would you do that? Why do you believe that? Why would that work? Sometimes just why? 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 With no context at all. It's a learned habit associated with an analytical method he learned years ago as an investigator. Speaking of investigations, this is going to end ours. Lately, my best performing videos have been about these character builds. That's kind of true. Actually, the video I put out last week is doing really great. Thank you guys for that. If you haven't checked it out, it's all about an economic system for the game. Thank you for watching. However, I am going to keep doing more of these character builds because you appear to like them and I like doing them. And this video is turned into kind of an unintended test as to see whether you like them in a longer format. If you do, leave a note in the comments. If you don't, leave a note in the comments. We can return to the shorter, more direct style. I can talk more about the Delta Coast. I don't mind turning my world building into videos. Do you want to hear more 2024 content? The Monster Manual's coming out soon, and we've barely touched the DMG. Thanks again for stopping by. I hope you all have a great 2025. The going might get rough out there, but we're going to weather the storm together. I love you all very much. Cheers.